Thank you for being with us. Our topic is COVID-19 now, children returning back to school, and of course economic recovery. Here in Malta, I'm still with the Honourable Dr. Claudio Grech, and we're joined by Professor Mark Brincat and the Honourable Kristy Debono. Thank you for being with us. Thank you very much for coming once again.
Thank you for inviting us.
An update briefly about children returning to school. Many concerned parents.
The school issue is a very big problem, and there is no, as Colin said just earlier, there's no single right answer. However, we've got to take into consideration that we have had a problem here in that the second wave, as we had predicted previously, came in August. And that was a very early second wave, and we're still not out of it. Nevertheless, we were expecting, everybody was saying, second wave is coming in October, but it came in August for the reasons that have been mentioned earlier, lack of testing, mass events, and we were a bit, it was a sort of experiment that went wrong. Let's put it this way, let's be kind. But anyway, now we're still not out of it, because as you see, there's still a lot of community-based infections around. However, this is a Solomonic choice, and you've got to see what is the best out of two evils. You've got two bad things here. Children are, men anyways, naturally a social animal. We are a tribal animal. Children especially are social animals. You can't keep them inside because they're going crazy. There was a famous experiment by Frederick II from Sicily, who used to be our own emperor as well here at the time. It's Stupor Mundi, they call him, wonder of the world. But he had made 10 mistakes. And one of them was to try and discover what the original language of Adam was. So he kept 10 children, 10 babies, completely isolated. Nobody was allowed to talk to them, nobody was allowed to touch them, just feed them, and that's it. The idea was to see what they spoke, what language they spoke in. Why did the experiment go wrong? Because they all died. So this is how important social interaction is. This was in the 1240s, and it's a well-known story. So the issue now, we've already kept children in since March. We cannot keep them in. So we have to let them out. We take some suitable precautions. There are protocols and protocols and protocols. Anyway, you can never get a perfect protocol. At the end of the day, we have to try, as we always say, open the tap a bit, see what happens after 2 weeks to 4 weeks. The big problem is not the children themselves. From a medical point of view, only 5% of children get infected. Only 5% of all the infections are children. They mostly seem to be resistant, but they can be carriers to their parents, their vulnerable parents, and also their grandparents. So this is the big issue here. Will they be? We don't know. Maybe they will be, maybe they won't. We will know 2 to 4 weeks after the schools open. But certainly, it is a good thing for the schools to open. And a lot of the reservations, and just as the frontliners, my appeal is to the teachers, actually. Just as the frontliners were flexible, very flexible, the nurses went to live on their own, doctors went to live on their own, away from their parents. People were working all sorts of hours. Our pathology staff were excellent, working 6 or 9 shifts. I can't remember how many, So everybody went the extra mile. I'm pleading, I'm sure the teachers will also go the extra mile. And if it means morning and afternoon classes, so as to, my suggestion was to have morning and afternoon classes so that you've got less children in each class. Sanitize in between, keep them isolated, morning, afternoon classes. After all, in my time, we used to stay at school till 4:30 or 5 o'clock. So morning and afternoon class, maybe change teachers, everybody stays in the same class, sanitize, masks, go for it, see what happens. But that is my way. That would have been my suggested protocol. I've invented. This is
correct me if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. Younger children in the classrooms do not need to wear masks, I understand.
Well,
but when they go out to the playground, they need to wear masks. I mean, to many parents, we've had questions coming in, that doesn't make sense.
To me, it should be the other way around. But of course, the problem is the tolerance of children wearing masks. I think this is also an issue. We know when children go to school, they start getting colds, they start getting all sorts of communicable diseases. This builds up their immunity. This is a good thing. It builds up their immunity. But sometimes the parents get the colds as well, and they get the flu as well. So I actually think that colds and flus will be in competition with COVID here when they start. So it won't necessarily make a bad state situation worse. It might be better. And we're finding that now, even though we've had a large number of cases, as we've had in the rest of Europe, large numbers of cases, lower numbers of people going to hospital. Ideally...
Are we heading towards herd immunity?
You can get herd immunity through other ways, not simply through your IgG system, through the one we are testing for. We've got also some sort of memory, which makes us more immune to a disease just like colds, common colds. With us, common colds are nothing. Even though we don't have them, we're not nothing, but they're not a severe illness. Smallpox used not to be a severe illness in Europe. When they went to South America, to the Aztec Empire, to Mexico, one slave had smallpox and that destroyed the Aztec Empire. Not cannon and swords, although they did enough damage with those, but smallpox did that. And the common cold did the same in North America. So if a population is naive, immunologically naive, it can wreak havoc. But within a short while, these people will build up immunity as well. So this is one way. It might become a more benign disease, but we'll have our vaccines. The cavalry, we hope, will be turning up soon.
Sure. Thank you, Professor Brincat. We're joined by Dr. Mark Sammut, who's a cardiologist.
Oh.
And I thank you very much for joining us. I particularly was interested in speaking to you as a physician and a father of young children. How comfortable are you feeling about children going back to school?
Okay, so as a parent of young boys aged 9 and 5 years, I strongly believe that our community should do its utmost to ensure that schools at all levels do open according to schedule, while obviously ensuring that protocols are in place to safeguard against transmission of the COVID-19 virus. Now let's consider a few facts. An important study which was carried out recently in the UK confirmed that the risk of death or major complications in children with COVID-19 is actually extremely small. In fact, there is a greater chance of children dying from other infections such as influenza or indeed from traffic accidents. So therefore, effectively, there is no danger for the children themselves when returning to school. On the other hand, experts tell us that prolonged absence from school is very detrimental to the children's mental health and social well-being. What we need to consider, however, is that children are carriers for the virus, and they can infect teachers, other vulnerable children, and vulnerable relatives, such as their grandparents. That is why it's very important that protocols are implemented to reduce the risk of children transmitting the virus to other people.
So what I gather from what you're saying is that you feel quite comfortable about your children making a return to school.
Yes, I do. I mean, especially for the children's sake, I do. Obviously, protocols need to be in place and need to be followed. Protocols that are based on the basic principles of social distancing and basic principles of limitation of virus spread that have been recommended by the public health authorities since the beginning of the pandemic, effectively, such as simple wearing of masks, keeping a distance of 1.5 meters, and avoiding large gatherings of children, hence the term bubbles. Also, I appeal to parents that it is very, very important not to send children to school if they are sick.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your input, Dr. Sammut. Thank you. Yeah. That was Dr. Mark Sammut, a cardiologist with young children. I always like to hear from physicians. Your children are older now, Professor Brincat, but it's quite comforting to hear an opinion from somebody who's got young children. Kristy, yourself as a mother, first of all.
Exactly, as you just said, I have made up my mind and I have decided that I will be sending my daughter to have the in-person learning, even though the school where she goes, we actually have a choice. However, I took this decision based on advice I've been given from medical experts, such as Professor Brincat and other experts. That is why it's so important to make up your mind after you take the necessary advice. As Professor Brincat said, it is a double-edged sword, and we must really choose the lesser of two evils. No one is certain where the future is taking us. We might be approaching the end of the second wave, but we might even be entering a third wave. So this is all very, very much uncertain, and no one knows the future about this virus. So at the moment, I think the best advice I would give to myself and to other parents would be to be responsible. As Dr. Sammut said, that even, yes, more than ever, we should not send children who have even the slightest of fever or other illnesses, because we have to be responsible for our children and for other children and their relatives and their exposure to whoever they will be. But yes, we have to as well choose the right balance for their mental well-being. I believe that children need to develop as well, especially when they are at a very young age. We should not intervene with their natural development, and I think they did their fair share now of homeschooling and staying at home. It has been a long extended punishment for them, because I'm sure that's how they see it, especially the ages of my daughter, who was only 5, and other children, especially those who are still 10 and younger and can't really understand how serious this virus is. However, they must now learn and be more familiar with the new norm, because at the end of the day, that is what there is. As a parent, I made sure that my daughter is very familiar with wearing a visor. However, as Professor Brincat said, children are children. So one day it will be a good day for her. The next day she will be throwing it up and all over. So it will be, I believe that the damage done when once again she puts it on her face is much worse than if she didn't wear it at all. But those are children. I believe in the education system. I believe, especially even in MUT, the Union of Teachers, who are doing a brilliant job, and I'm sure they will be keeping the government, the authorities on their toes, because we do need obviously the watchdog as well. And as long as the right measures are implemented and, most importantly, followed by us parents and educators, which I'm sure it will be the case, then I have a clear conscience that it will be the right decision. But as I'm saying, it is too premature to say what is the definite
yes. On the whole, though,
right decision.
I feel very positive after you've all been speaking. Dr. Grech, what provisions is Malta taking for economic recovery, budget-wise?
No, obviously, the situation is, at this point in time, rather critical in terms of some particular sectors. So as things start coming back to normal, hopefully, and we do hope that things start coming back into normal with the right dose of compliance and with the right dose of discipline from the government up to all the people that live in this country, we believe that there is a pathway towards recovery. However, in this pathway, there are a number of sectors which are facing extreme, I would say, to the extent of survival, some of them, extreme difficulties in order to continue in their operation. And this is what my colleagues and I, together with Kristy and together with Mario De Marco, who heads finance, and a number of other MPs, we shall be working over the next few weeks to put forward an intensive set of pre-budgetary proposals, so that the government now puts its money where its mouth is. Because ultimately we have been hearing... We discussed
with Kristy a couple of weeks ago, didn't we, Kristy?
We have been hearing for years on end of how great the economy is, of how gifted this government has been in terms of making and generating wealth. Now is the time that the wealth that not the government generated, but that the people worked for and generated for this country, that wealth now needs to be put back into the economy to make sure that we do not only save jobs, but we actually create more well-paid jobs for a new economy, for a stronger economy, and for an economy which can be sustainable, which can live within this new normal, this new environment, which I'm sure in the same way like our children are going to adapt to, most of us, like we did already, will adapt to and will ensure that we continue moving forward.
Sure, thank you.
Thank
the time is always short because I would have liked to discuss that a bit more. To close, Professor Brincat, always focusing on the school children because...
I wish the teachers all the best because they are the next group of frontliners now.
Exactly.
And they, of course, are not children. So it is now their turn, their time. And I'm sure they will rise to the occasion with flying colors. I just want to make a quick little point on our ADHD and autistic children with special needs in classes. Now, we remember how many LESs we have in every class. Some classes have as many as 4 or 5 LESs and children with special needs, and I go to these schools occasionally. And obviously, there's going to be some hard thinking done about these children. They might not necessarily be physically vulnerable, but mentally, there's going to be a lot of stress when they're in these classes again. So my plea is that these classes should not have too many children in them if possible. That's why I would be in favor of splitting them. But I would wish all the best of luck to the teachers because they are going to have to bear the brunt of this. But hopefully it will pass and it will be a good experience.
So children need individual attention.
I'm optimistic it will be a good experience.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I'm with Professor Mark Brincat, the Honourable Kristy Debono, the Honourable Dr. Claudio Grech. I thank you very much for watching. I'll be with you next week at the same time. I wish you a lovely weekend.